Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Valen, and this is Refined Storage. Today we're going to be covering how to move everything around in your system, as well as how to make things. So when last we left off, I showed you all the different ways of how you can make your different storage types. At this point, we're going to show you, I'm going to show you a little bit about how to move things around, how to craft, and how to, interact in the world, more or less, with this episode. So we're going to start off with the exporter and importer. Now these items here, when connected to your system, or network, which is what I'm going to call it, basically anything that's connected to your creative controller in some way, shape, or form, that would include, in this case, a disk drive, because it's connected to a grid, which is connected to a creative controller. So here we have an exporter, which it's a very simple device as well as an importer. Let me grab this here. And the recipe for an exporter is going to be a construction core, improved processor, and a cable. So it's not very expensive. And the importer itself is going to be very similar, a destruction core, an improved processor, and a cable. So these are very basic recipes as far as refined storage goes, but they're made to help with automation in a lot of cases. Now, an external storage over here is similar, but not the same as an importer and an exporter. Importers and exporters will move items. They will not read inventories. That's what an external storage does. Now, while an importer may take the items in here and put them in your system, the external storage will not do so. That will actually read. It will interact, insert, and export things as you need to. So for instance, I take this disk drive out. It is now in my inventory. It took it from one of these chests. I put this here. It goes back into one of these chests. This, if I take, right now I've got 32 coal in here, and I have a generator that requires coal in order for it to be fueled. So if I want to do this, I have an exporter that is set to whitelist items right now, coal specifically. So if I put something else in there that's not coal, or I take coal out and I put in wood, which would be an acceptable fuel source, I put that in there, it would be something different, but I'm not going to do that for now. I'm just showing you the coal. But the idea is this will only export into this. It will not come back out unless you have like an importer. But then also there's restrictions on how fast those go. So it's not considered an inventory as much as it is a transportation system. So the exporter right now, why isn't it tossing out this half stack of coal into the coal generator if I've got an exporter hooked up to it, even though it's got a coal here? Well, that's because I have it set to redstone mode. Only work with redstone signal. As before, you've got a lot of different items here that you can use to customize it as needed. Now in this case, I turn this lever and it will start importing into the coal generator, which then would normally start working, but I've got the lever a little too close. So allow me to instead flick that lever back off, and I will just turn it to work without redstone, and it should insert, because that lever was actually shutting off the coal generator at the same time. So you got to be very careful where you put your levers and buttons and stuff if you're going to be doing that. But there you go. You can now see that it imported the coal immediately. It is currently functioning as it should, and that lever doesn't actually make any difference whatsoever. So that's one way of putting things from here automatically into a generator. So if I put more coal in here, it will automatically start feeding it in. Now, you notice I've got less than a half stack now because it's obviously being eaten up by the generator. So if I take this cable and hook it up to this importer here, which is currently set to redstone mode, so it shouldn't feed into the system at all, but it is attached to this chest full of coal. There's nothing left in the system right now. So if I turn this to only work with redstone, so it's currently not going to feed any more coal into this system. It's at 31 at the moment, and I turn this one to accept it without redstone signal. It should start importing. Oh, there we go, ignore redstone. And then it should start importing everything into the system if I don't have it set to blacklist as well. So let me change this to whitelist, and it should then start feeding everything in. And you notice the numbers are increasing. It doesn't just automatically read how many are in there. Reason being, it's moving everything out of this inventory into our current inventory, which is, I've got a 64K storage block stored back here, which will store 64,000 items. Right now I've got 1,500 coal or so. It's kind of rounded. And you'll notice that it has not fed any more in here. So if I change this to ignore that, it will then start feeding this in, provided that it's not blacklisted as well. There we go, ignore redstone signal. And you can see here that if I take out the coal, it will instantly start inserting more coal. So it will keep it topped off. I take out a half stack, it's going to want to insert a full stack right now. So therefore, there you go. The reason being for this, I realize now, is because it's got a stack upgrade in there. So if I remove the stack upgrade, currently it's just got a speed upgrade. So I can take out a half amount and it's going to insert it one at a time. If I put on this here just the stack upgrade, it's going to insert a stack at a time. So when I take out the entire amount or even a half amount, it's not going to refill until I get the entire thing empty, and then it's going to put in an entire stack. Once again, I can just put all this stuff back in here and it's good to go. Or I could even put it in here, which it is currently also equipped with a stack upgrade. If I remove this, I can put these into the chest, and it's just going to slowly start feeding into the system. And then if I put a stack upgrade in here, it instantly goes in because it just took stacks at a time. So that's kind of the exporter and importer. You can actually set this up to automatically feed into your, perhaps in this case, a coal generator so that it can power the system as needed from your system. So it's pretty neat. It's your most basic example of an automation. And to further that, I have another example. Over here, I currently have a storage monitor set up. As you can see, these are storage monitors on either side. We'll cover those in a moment. At the moment, though, you can see an importer and an exporter. If you ever get confused about which one is which, or what direction they're going to be sending things, remember an importer, they are actually shaped kind of like in a triangle. This one going out of this block. This one is triangularly shaped or pyramid shaped in a way, using Minecraft cubes, going into this block. So an exporter will export from the grid into this. So if you make some of these and you put them down on the ground, you can then figure out what they're going to do, or put them on a block. That's one way of figuring out how they're going to work. Now in this case, I have a grid with a coal generator, as well as some storage and a creative controller back here, which could typically be powered by this coal generator at the same time. Coal generator has some coal in it. This is a powered furnace here, and we've got a crusher here. Basically, ores will be coming in from this crate. I have a whole bunch of iron ore set up here. It will then, let's just say it's going to be piped in. Right now I've got an importer, which will take the iron ore, put it into the crusher, and it's also hooked up to our system, so it gets powered without any problems. Then from the crusher, it will start processing the iron ore, duplicating it into multiple crushed ores, which will then go into the system. As you can see here, there's another importer going in, and it will go back down into the powered furnace. And the powered furnace will then process the crushed iron into iron ingots, which will then be imported back into the system. So you can see here, I currently have in the system 6 iron and 1 gold ingot on these handy dandy storage monitors, which I will be showing you those in a moment. Now let's assume that this crate is hooked up to some kind of quarry that you have going on, or this is just an input chest for any kind of ores that you have. And all I need to do here is just change this to ignore redstone signal. It's currently whitelisted, so therefore it's going into the crusher via the import exports, and I currently have this set with a filter for iron ore. You could have it set for multiple things, or you could just put the iron ore directly in here. For instance, let me grab one of these here, put that there, and I could actually do this instead of a filter. So it's up to you how you really want to do that. If you don't have enough space, that's what you can use the filters for, because a filter can hold multiple things as well. But you can see that it's currently processing the iron ore, and on occasion it will get a secondary output of gold, crushed gold on the side too. Now what that's going to do, as I said before, it will then get pulled back out into the system, and you can see that there's a bunch of iron currently going into the system. The reason for that is because currently this chest is hooked up to go into our inventory system. It's not a perfect setup that I have here, but it should still give you the idea. Now the point here is that it's going to be taking this crushed ore into the system. You'll see it briefly go in, and I could directly connect this to your the powered furnace, but instead I just chose to have it go through it, just to show you that this is a complete unit, and that's why you're seeing everything show up in here as well. Now on the plus side, it should still import things into this crusher. Now the crusher is not actually currently processing things fast enough. You can see it's already full. So once the system has all this in here, it will then start pulling it back out. 59, you can see it's going down. It's going to go to 58 here in a second. There it goes, and it's pulling it back out into the crusher. So it's kind of going into two places right now. I've got it being fed into the system and fed into the crusher. I could have it just go into one or the other, but I have it going into both. So it's got kind of an overflow. Then it goes down into the powered furnace, which is then creating, all these getting smashed into place, and it's set up for crushed iron and crushed gold, so it could grab either one. It's probably just going to grab one for the moment. And as things get processed, you can see them showing up here. Now, a storage monitor is made of glass, construction core, destruction core, as you're seeing a common theme here. A couple of basic processors, quartz enriched iron, and a machine casing. These are similar to barrels. If I'm in regular survival mode and I left click, I grab a stack, basically. I can right click and put it back in there. If I shift left click, I take out one. So these are similar to like a barrel or a drawer, depending on the mod that you are most familiar with. And you can use them as such. You can actually create an entire wall of these storage monitors if you so desired. And you can get an instant glimpse of what they are and just, kind of grab what you need, or just a few things that you need for your current project that you're working on. And you can customize them. So in this case, shift right click, the storage monitor pops up and it has this little area here. If I wanted to see how many iron ore instead of iron ingots are in there, I could do that. And you now see that there's 39 currently in there. It's very simple. You just right click again, and I could change it out with something else, like a storage monitor. There aren't any in there right now, so it's going to say 0. Put that on, shows you 1. Pretty neat, really cool little thing. I'm just going to dump all these in here. No big deal. Don't need them right now. Next up, we're going to cover the crafting grid, which is going to be invaluable. I recommend, instead of going with a grid just to access inventories in any of these cases, that you, as soon as possible, I realize this is episode 2, but as soon as possible, upgrade to a crafting grid. Crafting grid recipe is going to be a regular grid. So if you already have one, not a problem. You just upgrade it with an advanced processor and a crafting table in a solderer, and you will get yourself a crafting grid. Now, the difference between this and a regular grid, you guessed it, it's got a crafting table. So I can actually grab the ingredients out here. Let's grab 6 of these, and I can take some of these, put them in there, and I've got 3 doors. I could take 3 of these. Oh, wait, I've got too many of this stuff. Just, pull them back out, and you could do that. Make yourself a crafting table. You want to clear the grid, you just clear it out like so, and you've got all the same functions on the side. Your display is going to be a little bit more compact because you've got the grid down here for crafting on, but more or less you can just make all you want out of this stuff. You can make an entire stack by shift clicking it. I just threw that on the ground by accident there. Let's throw those down. You can do all sorts of stuff. Let's put these over on the side, a couple here, and I've got a fence. There we go. So you've got a lot of options when it comes to crafting grid. Very worthwhile, something you should get to straight away. Does require, because of the cost on that one, with the recipe being an advanced processor, an extra diamond in this case, but I mean, it's so worth it. And here we get into a little bit more complex of stuff. We've got constructors, destructors, relays, and detectors. First off, a constructor. A constructor, when you look at it, is very simple. It's just this flat plane with somewhat of a cable sticking out. You can see here when it's in the place there. You can right click and it will construct black concrete, because I currently have a few in here, but it is currently set to only work with redstone. Well, let me turn that off. And there you go. It just created one. If I break this, it will instantly make another one, or relatively instantly. You can always upgrade this with speed upgrades, as we have done before, and it will place things a bit faster than before. And it can place things in the world for you. You can see now that I've kind of destroyed several of the blocks. That's basically the constructor. It can help put things down as requested. You can have it hooked up to redstone signals and so on. Next we have the destructor, which I have over here hooked up with a kind of a cobble gin farm here at the moment. So if I click on this monitor, or the grid here, you can see I've got 144 cobblestone, a couple black concrete, and a water bucket. So if I switch this on, it will do so, but it's currently set to turn off. It will currently break the block there and harvest it. It won't just break the block. So it will go into the system. Allow me to demonstrate with this one here. I have some lapis and so on, but let me grab a bit of cobblestone first. So if I put the cobblestone out here, it instantly will break it. That's not me breaking it, and it puts it back into the system. 116, That's 2 more, 118. So there you go. That's pretty much how a destructor works. It's not going to be the best for mining per se, because you actually have to have it connected to your system and it only mines the one block in front of it, but it may have other uses. If you're silk touching items, or you're having ores generated in front of it, say on a sky block, or you've got some magic ritual that brings ores to a location, you might be able to benefit best from it. You can upgrade this. So if I were to add in Fortune upgrade, Fortune 2, Fortune 3, or even a Silk Touch upgrade, it would benefit from this. So let me grab this lapis here, Silk Touch and Fortune 3. Now you can see in the system currently there's no lapis. So if I put in this destructor a Fortune 3 upgrade, plus it's got a bunch of speed upgrades already in it. Well, actually let's do Silk Touch first. And I take my lapis lazuli block, place it here. It can then, you know, harvest it instantly. So this is a really good way of getting like obsidian. If you have a lava bucket being put in place and then water being poured over it or something like that. So you can create an obsidian farm. Of course, I'm in creative, so as I'm placing these, down, it doesn't use anything up off of my hotbar, but there you go. I now have 8 lapis lazuli blocks. Now, if I go further with this, I add in a Fortune 3 at the same time as the Silk Touch upgrade. Well, let's find out what happens. It breaks it, and it goes in there. Well, it's going to have an override. Silk Touch is going to be the first one that is currently used. Second to that, if you have multiple fortunes up in there, like I've got Fortune 1 and Fortune 2, or I put multiple Fortune 3s in there, it's only going to go with the lowest one, actually, and it will only go with one of those versions. So don't stack these together. You go with one of them, and that's pretty much it. So if it's glowy, that's the only one you want. Now, Silk Touch, it's going to require Silk Touch Magic Book, Redstone, and an upgrade canister. Then your Fortune upgrades are going to require either 1, 2, or 3 book, plus the same thing as before. Now if I put this placed, it then breaks it, and it also puts in a whole bunch of lapis. And it gives you somewhere in the neighborhood of these numbers here for each different upgrade, with your Fortune 1, 2, and 3, giving you somewhere a little bit higher percentage chance of getting more materials from them. Now you'll notice that this one here is currently not functioning. That is because of 2 things. One, I've got a relay, and second, I've got a detector. First, I'll show you the relay. A relay allows you to shut things off that you don't want running. So if you currently have a bunch of solderers attached to your system, for instance here, I have a solderer. It's not soldering anything. Take out this basic processor, but if I click on the controller, you can see all the things that are currently using up power. Cable is not using up any, but the solderer is constantly using 7 FE per tick. I don't want that to keep on running all the time, but I would like to have it attached if I need to. I don't want to have to keep on placing blocks down. Well, that's what a relay is for. Relay allows you to shut off power to an area. Right now, that one is connected to the destructor. So if I flick this switch, because if I right click on the relay, it just gives you the option to have it work with a redstone mode or not. You can turn those off or have them ignored. Flick that on. It will then start working, and therefore the destructor is currently harvesting this cobblestone. I look in here and you can see 156, 157, 158, etc. So that is one way of having it work. Now another way, you'll notice that I've got a cable going out and down over here. Well, why isn't this one working? A detector. So if I have 159 blocks, this detector here, which actually I should show you that the relay's just a machine casing, cable, and a redstone torch. It's very, very basic compared to some of the other recipes. Now a detector, which is this little area here, this thing here is quartz enriched iron, redstone comparator. It's relatively cheap, a little bit with a gold ingot in there for improved processor, but it's not that bad. And what it's going to do is generate a redstone signal if something is of a certain value. Now, if I right click on this, you can see it has 100 preset on here. Now, when it gets to 100, this is going to start activating, or it depends right now. Items emit signal when under the amount, items being auto-crafted when on the amount or above the amount. And you notice it turned on. So when the amount is actually above 100, it's going to start processing. So if I turn that to under the amount, so you can see 165. If I take out 64, nothing's going to happen. Take out 1, nothing's going to happen. Take out 1 more, it's going to turn on and off. Here, let me actually grab in here, and I will grab a half stack this time. And it instantly turned on, which will then launch this to starting to harvest again. And of course, you can start putting on some speed upgrades if you want, but it can get a little bit laggy if you have a bunch of these going in place. So you'll not want to spam these all over your server or your single player world, because they can get a little bit stuttery. But they are very, very useful, and I do recommend that you use them with the case of a detector so that it will automatically shut off when they're not needed. And in this case, we're up to 90, and once it gets to 100, it should automatically shut down. And there you go. It automatically shut down once it reached 100. Ta-da! Next, we've got fluids. Enough of the item movement, let's get into some fluid movement. So with this, we've got a fluid interface. We've got a fluid storage block, which you can also make fluid disks if you so desire. Let's see, so you've got your same values as you would for the others, but they're going to start with 64,000 fluid storage disks for the lowest. And you might think, wow, 64,000, that's a lot. That's millibuckets. So that's a total of 64 buckets worth of fluid. 128, 256, and a maximum of 512 buckets worth in one disk or a storage block, depending on how you want to do it. So you can hook that up to a fluid grid as well. So let's start looking at some of these recipes here, grab each of these. This one here, the most basic fluid storage block, is going to be a basic processor, machine casing, and a 64K fluid storage part, which is, you know, just a bit of silicon bucket and so on. It's not too bad. Now, the fluid grid, it's just a regular grid plus an advanced processor and a bucket instead of a crafting table for a crafting grid. These ones here can store fluids. How's that? We'll start with that. Water. Now, if I have buckets in my inventory, let's grab a bunch of buckets, and I want this 6 water. I just need to click, and it will automatically place well, there we go. It will automatically fill a bucket in my mouse right there. So if I click these, shift click them, they will automatically fill back into the fluid grid, which is pretty neat. I mean, that's kind of how it works for the vanilla mechanics right now. If I'm shift clicking the buckets in there, it's not going to go in because this is a fluid storage only. I don't have any item storage hooked up to this, just fluids. So there is other ways of getting fluids in here besides just hand bucketing this stuff in, because that'd be a bit, I don't know, ridiculous in some ways. A fluid interface. This here has an in. It will automatically fill up to 16 buckets worth automatically. It is set to only work with redstone mode, so if I turn this on, it will then start filling the water into this. Now in this case, I have a Actually Additions fluid collector hooked up on an infinite water block source. So therefore, as I flick this, it's going to start this pumping in, and you can see that the water is being slowly filled in place. And then your fluid collector here is going to start pumping stuff in through the system. Now, what the fluid interface does is it allows you to pump fluids in, interface with other mods via pipes, machines, whatever, so that you can actually get fluids into your refined storage system without the need of buckets. And if you notice here, it's actually up to 30. And you notice here, I turn that back off. The fluid collector starts filling itself back up, which then starts filling the fluid interface. Even though it's set to redstone mode only and it's not going to start filling, you'll notice that it's at 30, but it is not currently filling anything in. It's just filling its own internal reservoirs. This redstone signal, once again, is traveling through the block down into the fluid collector, which is also affected by a redstone signal. So once again, you're going to have to watch where you put your redstone signals so that you're not affecting multiple blocks, like I am in this case. Now, speaking of interfaces, fluid or otherwise, there are also item interfaces, which is just called a regular interface, or it's just called an interface, not a regular one. You take an importer and an exporter, and you get a machine and a machine casing in a solderer to get that. This one here was a bucket redstone and an interface. So this one's actually a little bit cheaper, but it's also less commonly used. This one allows you to interface with, it is called an interface, other inventory traveling systems. And in the vanilla Minecraft case, I'm going to say a hopper. You can take an item hopper, and you notice up here, it's got all sorts of stuff in there. None of it is going into this crafting grid. It is empty because it does not just function like that. You can't even hook up a regular pipe to it to go into it. For instance, let me grab a cable here. I meant cable, not pipe. And we'll put this here, and you see it doesn't connect. Reason being, you need an interface here. So I have some stuff, let's put some 16 buckets in, and it's going into the system, and it's where's it going? Well, it's going into the interface import buffer. It's got this little kind of buffer area. It's currently set to work with redstone. So if I take all these things out here and I put all these things in there, it will interact with other item transportation systems like item pipes or some well, cables or conduits that some systems might use. You can see that the interface is currently, its buffer is full up. So let me grab a couple more items here. I can actually put buckets in there. You can see it's actually a little full and it's starting to back up in the item hopper. Now if I pull this lever, it should start importing everything very slowly. You can see that it's all going down. If I add in a speed upgrade here, let's toss those in. Whoops, not the way I wanted to do. There we go. It quickly then inserted everything into the system here. And there you go, everything's in place. So it's just a way of interacting with other mods' item transportation systems. And that should do it for today's Bit by Bit on refined storage, moving items, crafting items, and well, liquids too. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to give a like below, comment, subscribe, and as always, spread the mischief to others if you think they'll enjoy this content. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.